Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be video number 4 from the typological analysis series, and in today's video we're going to explore the question of why personality type is important. So what we're going to do in the video is we'll start first with a quick recap of what we did in the previous video, which is we explored what is personality type. So we'll do a quick recap of that. And then we're going to focus on this question about the importance of personality type. We're going to do some statements here, and hopefully we're going to be able to tie everything up in the end together. And so we can start now with the recap. So what we did in the previous videos is we said that if, let's say, this is a person, and then we have this model, this structure, this framework, which explains the psychology of the person or also their physiology to some extent. And we call this personality type. And at the same time, we said that this personality type, in order for it to be complete, we need these 4 statements to be true. And the 4 statements were, so the first one, we have it here. All people use the same natural processes. So what does this mean? In the previous video, we talked about having 4 natural processes, which are thinking, sensing, intuition, and feeling. So those are the natural processes. And here in this example, we have the personality type, which corresponds to the MBTI type ISTP, which uses the thinking process, the primary one, and then there is the sensing process, the intuiting process is third, and the feeling process is fourth. And the first statement here says all people use the same natural processes. So what this means is that everyone is going to use the same 4 processes: thinking, sensing, intuition, and feeling, but they can be ordered in a different way. So this is what creates different personality types, but still those are the main natural processes and everyone uses them. So the second one is that you have a preference for processes in your experience. So what this basically means is that in your personality type, uh, the natural processes you use are ordered, meaning that a specific process, so ordered means a specific process is higher up in the order than another process, or in other words, it is stronger. So it manifests in your psychology in a in a stronger way. And in this specific scenario, with the ISTP example, the TI is the so-called dominant process, so it is the strongest one. And the FE, the feeling, the natural process of feeling, in this situation is extroverted feeling. It is the so-called inferior process, so it has the least strength in the psychology of the person who is of this personality type. So this is the second one, that you have a preference for processes in your experience, which means that the processes are ordered. Then the third one is going to be that different people might have different preferences. So of course this is the cornerstone of personality type, which basically means that different personality type exists, or in other words, if you look again at the natural processes, some people might have the thinking process the first, but other people might prefer the feeling process the first, or the sensing process, and this is what creates all of the different personality types. So different people might have different preferences for which one is their preferred process, natural process. And then at the end, the last one is your preferences stay consistent, constant, let's say. This, I think consistent is actually better. So stays consistent throughout time. No reference, but your preferences. So this is one of the most important ones. We're going to use this one today, but what this says is that your personality type, or we call here in the rule preference, is consistent throughout time, meaning that you have the same preference or the same personality type when you are born and as well as when you die. So during your time, your personality type does not change. Of course, you can develop yourself, you can improve, you can get more comfortable with specific process that you use, because everyone uses all the processes, just that different processes have different strengths in the person's psychology. but you can improve that, but still you have a natural tendency, a natural preference for specific processes. And this is the fourth rule. Okay. And this is a recap for what personality type is. And now what we can do is we can move forward to trying to explore this question of why personality type is important. And so we tackled the first part about, so what is this question? We have the personality type part of it, which we tackled. So this is what we consider personality type. And then we also have this important part. So what we need to tackle now is to understand what is important. Of course, a very hard task, but let's try and analyze this a bit. So what can be considered important? Well, first thing that comes to mind is that maybe other people can tell you what is important. Like you can listen to the society or to your parents or some other influence you have, and they can say what is important. But usually people are not happy with this kind of explanation, and what most would say is that what is important is to some extent a subjective question. So it is up to the individual to decide what is important. But what we can do is we can try and lean on philosophy, since this is what a philosopher is, right? He goes there and then some people spend their whole life in philosophy and trying to tackle this question of importance, or trying to understand what is important. And we're going to try and see three philosophers or psychologists, which of course is part of philosophy as well. Try to understand their perspective and let's see what they think about this question of importance. And if you read philosophy, what you'll notice is that there is this centerpiece of the philosophical thought about on the question of importance, and it is expressed differently with different philosophers, but in the end, it's kind of the same underlying theme behind it, and it is this theme of so-called self-actualization. So let's put it here: self-actualization. Hope I spelled it correctly. And you will see this first in Maslow. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he says that self-actualization is on the top level. Probably most of you are familiar with it's a pyramid, right, with the needs of people, of human. And at the top of this pyramid, he has this idea that self-actualization is the most important one for people, which if everything else is satisfied, they will go through this self-actualization process. There's also Nietzsche, who has this idea of the Übermensch. So Übermensch, I don't know if it's spelled like this, I think so. Mensch, actually, Überman, like this, and it's with the the German U. But the idea of this is somewhat similar to self-actualization, expressed in a different way. But what Nietzsche said is that this person, so a person should strive to become this Superman or Übermensch in German, which follows his own rules, his own values, and then tries to do again this self-actualization process to arrive at the best version of himself. So this is Nietzsche's idea. So we can somehow deduce from this that self-actualization is a process that is important. And now the question becomes, so how do we do this self-actualization? What is actually self-actualization? So self-actualization, it has two parts here, self and actualization. And the process of actualization is very simple to understand. It's actually achieving one's potential or best potential. So getting to the best version of something, this is actualization. And the other part is the self part. So we can say that self-actualization, achieving self-actualization or becoming the best version of yourself is strictly related to this self part, which the important part here is how to understand yourself. Like how are you able to self-actualize if you don't understand yourself? So understanding yourself is kind of the important part in doing the actualization part, since if you don't understand yourself, you're not able to actualize. So we can put this here as understanding yourself. And also what Aristotle said here, if we go back to the philosophers, so what he said is knowing yourself is the beginning of wisdom. So we come to this part of how do you understand yourself? And okay, let's try to analyze this question. So how can you understand yourself? Again, if we go back to what we talked before, one way to try to understand yourself is if you get input from the external environment. So the first type of input is if you ask other people of what are you or what is important for you or society. So this is one way to try and understand yourself, but this usually doesn't work very well. And what I found out so far to be the best way to understand yourself is through experience and through exploration. So what this means is that you go out there and you try to explore, you try to see how you behave in different scenarios. So the exploration process is you go and you try different things, and they have to really be very different from each other, because if you try similar things, you understand less about yourself than if you try different things, something that is majorly different than another thing. And in this way, what happens is that you try some things, and then you see how you react to specific situations that you put yourself in, and then you understand more about yourself. So you understand your values, you understand how you react in specific situations, you understand what is comfortable and what is not comfortable for you by putting yourself in different situations which are a bit out of your comfort zone. So this is one way. And this is, of course, very, very useful. And I would suggest for everyone who is kind of stuck and doesn't know what to do this exploration process where he tries something different that he hasn't tried before, and then he creates an opportunity to explore himself better by doing this. But here comes typology. So another way to try and understand yourself is using typological analysis or type or personality type. So what personality type gives you? It gives you this framework, right? This thing here, which we're going to explore in the next video. We're going to go dive deeper into the theory, but the idea is that it kind of gives you an idea about your preferences, and you can somewhat skip some of the exploration process if you understand your preferences. So let's say we look at this example here, which is for the ISTP personality type. And so what is interesting about this type is that their dominant process is called introverted thinking, and something common about people who use this process as a dominant one is that those people really like problem solving or games and things like that. And if you understand that, they also, since their secondary process is extroverted sensing, means that they are very attuned to the external environment, and they're able to act naturally and act very efficiently in the external environment, which ultimately, if you look at those top two processes, it creates a person who is capable of being extremely good in the moment and extremely good at problem solving and acting well in crisis situations. And by having this understanding, so if you know you're an ISTP type and you know you're good at these things, you don't even need to go and explore those, because usually you're gonna understand it based on your personality type if something is gonna be good for you or not. I mean, this doesn't prevent you from going and exploring. You still have to go and explore, but it gives you this predictive ability of what's gonna be good for you, what you're gonna enjoy and what you're not gonna enjoy based on your cognitive makeup. And since we have this for true here, which is your preference stay consistent throughout time, you can expect that usually whatever you have as a preference is gonna stay consistent, and you have this predictive ability of what you like and what you won't like based on your personality type. So this is one thing. Other thing is that understanding, so this is going to help you, the personality type is going to help you understanding your strengths, which is your dominant process, but also it's going to help you understand what are your weaknesses, which is your so inferior or tertiary process. And those things, working on those things can help you really actualize yourself and achieve your best potential. So this is back to the self-actualization part. And also there are processes which you don't even have, or some people say that they're in your shadow. We won't go into detail here, but there are also formal processes which the ISTP personality does not actively possess. So they're shadow process. And understanding what those are will really help you understand like what you will have a really hard time doing, and also why other people are good at specific things that you're not good at. So this is about understanding yourself, but think about personality type. It's not just your own personality type, but you can also think about the personality type of other people. So if you understand all personality types, if you get really interested in personality type and you're able to understand all different ones with their nuance and have a deep understanding of how each people's specific personality types work in specific environments and why do they prefer specific things rather than other things, this will help you also understanding other people and building empathy for them. So understanding, I'll put this here, understanding other people. So one thing here is that when you know the other person's personality type, what can happen is that you can give specific personalized advice to this guy or to the person, because usually the personality type of a person represents their strong and weak points. And if we go back here to this example with the ISTP, so as we said before, we know that this guy is very good at problem solving because he has TI, introverted thinking, as his dominant or hero function. And on the other hand, this means that the fourth one in the stack, so the extroverted feeling, is the inferior or the weakest function in his psychology, which means that he, most of the time, most likely, he will have problems with this extroverted feeling function. And a kind of advice you can give to a person with the ISTP preference, you can probably he's gonna have trouble with the FE function, and then you can give him advice on how to improve the FE function. And then imagine another personality type which has feeling as their dominant process. Then what they're gonna have, extrovert feeling, let's say, what they're gonna have is they're gonna have problem with introverted thinking, and how this is going to manifest is that they might be very attuned in a group setting and be completely merged with the group and don't have their own opinion, like their own opinion is completely based on what the group thinks. And with this kind of person, what you can give them as advice is to strengthen their connection to TI, to introverted thinking, which means go and think more about stuff by themselves and don't just always be going with the flow with the group. So you can see how two completely opposite ideas, opposite suggestions can work for different people based on their personality type. So it's very important, in my opinion, to kind of create your advice if someone asks you for advice or for some pointers, to create this based on their specific needs. And how do you do that? Well, if you understand their personality type, this can help you a lot in understanding what are their main processes, what are their weak parts, and how they can improve on the weak parts, and how they can also utilize their main strengths as well. And this gives you this ability of empathy where when you talk with another person, you're able to understand their perspective and you're able to understand why you have a disagreement on specific points, because they literally just think differently, and they have their psychology and their physiology is completely different than yours. So you can have an argument about something and it's possible that both of you are right, but you're right from your specific vantage points, for your specific points of view. So not all arguments are somebody has to win or somebody has to be correct, especially if we talk about some nuanced things related to psychology and related to what to do in your life and how to live your life. Okay, so I think that's gonna be all for now. So what we can do here, let's see. So we can try to drive home the argument. So we try to explore the question of why personality type is important, and then we go through this process of self-actualization, which comes from philosophy. And then we understood that in order to do this self-actualization, you need to actually understand yourself. And also, since you're not living alone, you're in a social environment most of the time, unless you're a monk, but even then, you're gonna interact with other people, and understanding other people is also another thing that may be very important. And since this is important, we can go back here, so we can say understanding others and understanding yourself help you with self-actualization, which helps you answer the question of why personality type is important. Okay, and I think that's going to be all for this video. In the next video, we're actually going to go into the theory finally, and we're going to go and explore Jungian cognitive functions. So here is a sneak preview of what we're going to do. We're going to try to explain the experience of a person. We're going to explain perception and judgment, how this was introduced by Carl Jung, so forth and so forth. And then we're going to explain also all of these things here. But yeah, this is just a sneak peek. So stay tuned for the next video. And thank you guys for watching, and bye-bye.